when Princess Charlotte showed up at the local horse show on a Sunday afternoon. No one expected anything unusual, but what happened next left everyone in shock. It was meant to be a simple family outing, something relaxed and low-key. Just the royals blending in with the crowd, watching the ponies and cheering on young riders. There were no fancy outfits, no formal duties, just boots in the mud, paper cups of tea, and horses. All around they were there for one reason only: to enjoy the local horse show and support the riders like any other family on a weekend outs. So it was the kind of day where everyone gets to breathe a little easier. It wasn't about the crown or titles, it was about kids being kids. People enjoying the fresh air, and maybe a bit of sunshine. But by the end of the day, everything had changed. The happy conversation that was spreading everywhere had faded. Smiles turned into quiet looks, and somewhere between the show ring and the snack stand, a quiet disagreement started to rise. And this disagreement was one that got people to start talking, and they were not talking for good reasons. At the center of the argument was Princess Charlotte, the 9-year-old daughter of Prince William and the granddaughter of Camilla named Lola Parker. Now, despite Charlotte's age, Charlotte carries herself with a maturity well beyond her years. Many say she has inherited her mother's grace and her father's quiet strength. And at times when she looks at you, there's a striking resemblance to Princess Diana, thoughtful, poised, with eyes that seemed to see everything that day. Charlotte wasn't acting like a royal, she was acting like every normal kid. Excited to see ponies, wearing her riding boots and holding a juice box, she walked with quiet confidence. Her hair pulled back into a neat ponytail, and she was wearing that familiar curious sparkle in her eyes. But something happened, something small but powerful, and from that moment on, the mood changed, and once it did, nothing at that horse show felt quite the same. Stay with us because what happened next will shock you. It started with a quiet comments. Nothing loud, no shouting. Just a few words spoken, low, but sharp enough to hurt, the kind of words that don't need to be yelled to do damage. The comment came from Camilla's granddaughter, Lola Parker's, who was sitting close to Princess Charlotte. You see, she wasn't a royal by title, but because of Camilla. She had always been around. People had seen her at family events, sometimes walking beside Camilla, sometimes sitting in the background at public celebrations. She was part of things, but not quite in the same way as the others. She was close enough to feel like family, but still outside of the inner royal circle, and even though she and Charlotte were close in age, they had never been especially close. They smiled for cameras when needed, stood next to each other at family events, and exchanged small talk. But there was always a space between them. But that same day, Lola said something that will change everything. Charlotte had just taken a sip from her juice box when she noticed Lola looking at her as if she wanted. And because Charlotte was raised to be polite, to share, to be thoughtful, she turned and asked, "Do you want some?" Lola quickly responded, "Yeah." Charlotte handed over the juice box, smiling lightly. "Just don't finish it. We're going to be here a long time, and I'll need it later." Her words were not rude. It wasn't said with an attitude, it was just Charlotte being practical. Trying to be fair, she turned her attention back to the ponies and ring, clapping as one of the riders cleared a jump. But when she turned back around, she noticed the juice box was empty. Completely drained, she blinked and asked, in shock, "Wait, did you finish it?" Lola just looked at her, expression flat. "Yeah." Charlotte frowned. "But I told you not to. Why would you do that?" Lola didn't answer right away. She looked at Charlotte for a while, then turned her head and said, "You act like you're in charge of everything, like you're the queen already, just like your mom." Charlotte's eyes widened in shock. "What do you mean?" she asked. "And she's not even queen." Lola continued, voice still quiet, still calm. "My grandma is your mom's, just pretending everyone sees it." Charlotte stood there frozen, gripping the empty juice box in her hand. But Lola wasn't finished. You're not special. One day they'll just marry you off, and that'll be it. That's all you'll ever be, someone's wife." There was no shouting, no big scene, just cold, sharp words spoken low enough not to draw attention, but heavy enough to sting. It wasn't just a comment. It was personal. delivered not like a joke or playful tease, but like a truth. Lola had been waiting to say Charlotte didn't cry. Right away she stood there for a second frozen. Then her face dropped and her eyes filled with tears. She didn't speak, she just walked quickly over to Kate and grabbed her hand, holding on like she didn't want to let go. Kate knelt down and wrapped her arms around her, calm but firm. She didn't ask questions because she did not want to give news outlets things to talk about. But people nearby said her face turned serious. Her whole body went still, and the look in her eyes said more than words ever could. Didn't yell, she didn't make a scene, but her presence became solid, almost like a wall. One look at her and you knew something had shifted. William had been talking to King Charles just a few feet away. When he noticed as soon as he saw Charlotte's face, he stopped. No more small talk. No more smiles. He walked over without saying a word. His expression tight. He asked one question, listened to the answer and nodded slowly. Then he looked at the girl who had made the comment, and then at the adults nearby, and simply took Charlotte by the hand and walked away. Jaw tight, hands in his pockets. No one made a public statement. No one needed to, but after that, everything felt different. The mood at the horse show changed. You could feel it in the way people spoke softer, the way they avoided eye contact. It wasn't dramatic, but it was undeniable. A cloud had moved in, but just a week later, when everyone had forgotten about the event, Prince William did something that shook the entire palace. What did he do? Let's find out immediately. It was 1 week after the incident. Prince William went on Twitter and posted something that shocked a lot of people. He didn't tag anyone, he didn't name names, just a message that read, "My family will always come first. Anyone who thinks they can harm my daughter and remain close to us is mistaken." And that was it. No palace seal, no official photo. Just a father making it clear that this time the line had been crossed, and it wouldn't go unanswered. This statement sparked a lot of debate among royal watchers. Many were surprised that William would say something like that about someone considered part of the family. People began to dig deeper, trying to understand why he would make such a bold comment. And they discovered that this wasn't the first time that Prince William's family had been treated badly. In fact, the criticism toward Prince William's family had been building for some time. It started with small comments, then quiet gossip. Little things that didn't seem important at first, but slowly began to take a toll, and recently most of it has been directed at one person. Kate Middleton. People often criticize Kate Middleton, saying that she was too perfect, that she smiled too much, dressed too neatly, acted like she was trying too hard to fit the royal image. Some even called her boring. The rumors changed week by week. 1 week it was that she didn't get along with Meghan. The next set of people claimed she was cold, distant, or too private. Even though Kate rarely responded and always appeared calm in public, the criticism didn't stop. But the most upsetting moment came when the old bikini photos resurfaced, shots of Kate and Pippa on holiday. Just two sisters trying to relax. The pictures had been taken with a long lens, without their knowledge, and splashed across newspapers and websites around the world as if it were normal. William had been furious at the time, but there was only so much he could do. The damage was already done. Later, people started judging her as a mom, saying she was too strict with the kids, that she didn't let them have screen time, that they were being raised too quietly, too far from the public eye. One article said the kids didn't have real friends. Another said Kate kept them too sheltered, like wanting to protect your children was something strange. And now the criticism has reached his daughter, a 9-year-old girl in riding boots, holding a juice box, trying to enjoy a horse show. And someone close to the family had looked her in the eye and tried to make her feel small. Not anymore. Not this time. That night William didn't sleep. He stayed in his office at Kensington Palace, with only his closest aides. He didn't yell, he didn't pace, he read security briefings, staff notes. He then asked one of the guards what had been done about Lola. The guard replied, "Nothing so far." Those words made him so angry that he made a decision on the spot. Lola Parker would no longer be allowed at royal events. No more private access. No more passes to family areas. No more quiet exceptions. Whatever special treatment she had been getting was over. There was no deliberation, no announcement. But William's word spoke for itself. When Lola's name didn't appear on the list for an upcoming family garden event at Windsor, reporters noticed when she wasn't seen with Camilla at a charity appearance. A few days later, what caught people off guard wasn't just the decision, it was how final it felt. This wasn't about drama, it wasn't about politics, it was personal. Because the real issue wasn't one nasty comment at a horse show, it was what the comment represented. This idea that being adjacent to the crown gave you power to hurt the people at its center, that you could have the perks without the discipline, that you could wound a child and still smile. Next to the throne, William made it known that that era was over. Irrespective of who you are at first, the palace stayed silent, but word spread quickly. Royal reporters started talking and soon the leaks began. The so-called horseshoe incident took on a life of its own. When a source close to the palace confirmed that Lola had been removed from the guest list for future events, the media reacted fast. Headlines popped up everywhere like, "William protects Charlotte, Camilla's family silenced, no second chances at Kensington." The response online was instant. Even people who normally ignored royal news were paying attention. Charlotte had become a symbol, a child caught in the mess, but defended the hashtags trended by Midday Chaka Teen. Charlotte William did right, and the sharper Chuck Keep It Royal comment sections lit up with comments like she's 9. You don't come for a child. He did what any father should do. She's not royal. Why was she even that close to begin with? This is the first time someone actually drew a line in that family. Even royal traditionalists, people who usually stayed away from social media arguments, spoke up. Not for gossip, but for something deeper: respect. Respect for a daughter who didn't deserve the cruelty, for a wife who had stood in silence while being picked apart year after year, and for a man had finally said enough. But not everyone agreed. Some thought William went too far. His comments read, "One rude moment and she gets banned from everything." A quiet word would have done. Others saw it as a power move. Looks like William just wanted to show who's boss. A few questioned the tweet itself. Feels like PR to me. We didn't hear Charlotte's side or the other girls. One post read, "It's starting to look like William and Kate want to be the only ones seen as good parents in that whole family." Another said simply, "Royal or not, kids fight." This didn't need to go this far. Still, for many, the bigger picture stayed in focus. A young girl was made to feel small in front of strangers, and someone finally stood up for her. That part people weren't arguing about, but here comes the shocker. Stay tuned. According to a source inside Clarence's house, Camilla didn't take the news well the moment she found out that her granddaughter was banned from royal events. She lost her temper. She walked around her room, slammed doors, and kept repeating the same thing. They've crossed the line to her. It wasn't just about a child making a mistake. It was about her family, about everything she had worked for over the past 20 years, she said. It was personal, a betrayal not just from William but from the whole royal system. She had tried so hard to be part of. She went straight to King Charles. Told him the punishment was too much. Said it was unfair, too emotional, and needed to be reversed. But Charles barely looked up from his paper. "It's been handled," he said quietly, and that was it for Camilla. That response hit hard. After all the years she had spent cleaning up her public image, smiling at garden parties, showing up at events, doing her part, she felt like it was all erased in one move. And the fact that it came from William, her own stepson, made it worse. But deep down it wasn't just about Lola, it was about something bigger. Something older. It was about blood, and being reminded that no matter how close she stood to the throne, her own family would always be seen as outsiders. So her frustration turned to Kate. She told close friends that Kate had played her part too perfectly. That she had taken full advantage of the situation. Calm, quiet, heartbroken. Camilla didn't believe it. She's not innocent. She was overheard saying she knows what she's doing. She always has smiles in public, knives in private. But not many believed her. Kate hadn't said a word to the press. She didn't leak anything. She didn't post online or respond to the rumors. The very next morning, she was back to work. Visiting a children's hospital. No interviews. No comments, just her hand resting gently on Charlotte's back as cameras clicked near. That quiet response said more than any statement could. Still, Camilla wasn't ready to let it go. Inside the palace, she started pushing. She held private meetings. She talked to senior aides, hoping to find someone who'd take her side. She kept bringing it up with Charles at dinner, during walks. Even hints passed on by her staff, but the result was always the same. A polite smile, vague words, and nothing more. The power she once had, soft influence, quiet backing, was suddenly gone. People weren't jumping to fix things. They weren't offering solutions. They were stepping back. At one point, Camilla even said she might step away from her public duties. Told her team she wasn't feeling well. They prepared a few soft press notes, tested the waters with friendly reporters. But the public's response was cold. People didn't want to hear about a queen consort being upset over her granddaughter losing royal privileges. Not when the image of Charlotte crying into her mother's arms was still fresh in everyone's minds. That photo had already made its way across the world, posted millions of times, turned into headlines. Ticks, even school essays about kindness. The mood had shifted. And this time Camilla wasn't the one people were standing behind. She felt it in the silence from the press, in the distance from the palace staff. Even in Charles, who kept his word short and stayed out of it. For the first time in years, Camilla was facing the reality that no matter how close she tried to come to the heart of the monarchy, she wasn't really in it. Not when it comes to decisions like this. Not when it came to William, and especially not when it came to Kate. But it did not end there. Camilla didn't stop at the palace. What she started as a quiet anger soon found its way into the press. Over the next few weeks, stories began showing up in places like the Daily Mail, the Telegraph, and even Hello magazine. Some hinted at a family rift. Others painted Lola as a sweet girl caught in drama. She didn't cause. At first the tone was gentle. Then it started to shift. William stayed quiet. He hoped that if he didn't react, it would all blow over. But inside the palace, the pressure kept growing. Camilla was still pushing behind the scenes, talking to advisors, making calls, trying to get Lola's access back too. This wasn't just about a child. It was about pride, respect, and her place in the royal family. The longer it dragged on, the more it felt like a battle, and finally William decided enough was enough. According to two senior aides, the breaking point came during a routine meeting about the king's health. The situation, while still private, had become harder to ignore. Charles wasn't bouncing back the way he once might have. Treatments were ongoing. Energy came and went. And for William, the future, the weight of what was coming, had never felt closer. He told close aides that when his time came, Camilla would have no role in the future of the monarchy. Not in official titles. Not in public image. Not in family history. She replaced my mother once, he said quietly. But she won't replace her in memory. The words landed like thunder in the quiet office. He didn't need to explain. Everyone knew what he meant. But that wasn't all. A few days later, he sat down with his children. Not as a prince. Not even as a future king, but as a father who had reached his limit. He spoke to them gently, clearly, with the kind of honesty only grief can make possible. And he told them the truth. Camilla was not their grandmother. Not anymore. She doesn't act like one. He reportedly said. She doesn't deserve the name. To George, Charlotte, and Lou, he made it simple. You already have a grandmother. Her name is Diana. And just like that, something shifted. Not just in the family, but in the fabric of the institution. Because it wasn't about petty titles or cold grudges anymore. It was about legacy, memory, boundaries that had been blurred for too long. In private, aides called it the invisible removal. A quiet rewriting of Camilla's place in the royal story. She would remain queen consort. By title, yes, but in William's. In the years to come she'd be absent from the symbols that mattered. No portraits beside Diana's. No mention in the lessons passed down to his children. No seat at the table. Once the crown passed hands, it wasn't revenge. William was simply protecting his family. And this time William wasn't asking for approval. He wasn't waiting for permission. He was simply drawing the line and making sure no one would ever make the mistake of attack his family. Again, so for William this wasn't about revenge. It was about setting things right for his mother, for his daughter, and for the future crown. He didn't raise his voice or seek headlines. He simply drew a line, and this time it stayed behind palace walls. The message was clear. Legacy matters, so does respect. Camilla may still hold a title, but in William's vision for the monarchy, her chapter is already closing. What comes next will be quieter, more focused and deeply personal. And when history looks back, it will remember who stood firm and who didn't belong in the story at all. What think about Prince William's bold decision? Was he right to draw the line, or did things go too far? Can moments like this really reshape the future of the royal family? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also click the following video shown on your screen.